so don't worry about it.
Hi everyone, how's everybody going today? Welcome. I'd just like to introduce Linda and myself. We both work in student services, and we just want to tell you a little bit about what student services does. Basically, we're there to help you with any issue at all that you have that impacts on your study. And we offer a range of services, both personal counselling, disability and inclusion services, career counselling, and a range of other services that overlap with all of what I've just mentioned. It's a free and confidential service, and we have campuses set up all across the country as well. So if you're closer to a country campus and you want to have a face-to-face appointment, you can always go to a campus that's in your area or your region. Otherwise, we do phone counselling via email, Skype, or, as I've mentioned, face-to-face. So I'll pop you on to Linda. She can just tell you a little bit about what she does, and then we'll share the PowerPoint. Thanks, Linda.
Thanks, Leanne. My name's Linda Lee. MWE is very easy to remember because it's a bit silly. And my role here is what's called the Access and Inclusion Advisor, which is current TAFE speak for the person who supports students who either have a disability or a health condition or a learning difficulty that's going to impact on your studies. So when people decide to study, either externally or coming to classes, if you're managing any kind of learning difficulty or a health condition, you can sometimes be concerned about how that might impact on your capacity to involve yourself as fully as you want to with study, and whether or not there will be any consideration made in relation to your health situation. So part of my role, Leanne, is to meet with students and work out what we as an organisation can do to ensure that you have as equal opportunity to be as successful as you wish while you're studying here. Usually one of the things we do is put together what's called an access plan, and that's a document that you and I or Leanne put together which talks about the impact of your health situation, and that can be then provided to your faculty. So the faculty does not need to know necessarily what health condition or difficulty you have, but they do need to know how that's going to impact on your studies. And then the access plan can be the precursor to you being provided with extensions of time to complete your work, possibly accessing assistive technology. If perhaps we have a number of students, as you can imagine, on campus who are coping with dyslexia, and with dyslexia you can be, a very able student, but the written word can be tricky. So there's a lot of assistive technology answers to that particular conundrum that we can put in place. If there was a hearing impaired or deaf student in the program, we look at providing interpreting and providing information and guidance about other services around the place that may be of assistance to our students. So information about NDIS, etc. That's all part of what we can do. So if you're thinking that you're concerned about anything to do with your health that might impact on your study, please make some time to come and see us. And as Leanne said, it could be on this campus or on any of the other TAFE campuses, seeing someone from student services before your health gets in the way of your of you being successful. That makes sense to people? Yeah? Cool.
Cool. We'd like to talk about the desk as well. So whether you're an internal student or an external student, you can access the desk via any website, and you can use your TAFE email address as your access code to get in. It's a really good platform if you need help with procrastination, time management, relaxation. They've got like little meditation, YouTube things on there. There's a whole range of things that you can access for your well-being. So it's really good if you're struggling in any areas or you just need a little bit of help. They have also like a coffee area, which is a desk that you can talk to people about anything that's going on that you want help with as far as relaxation or wellbeing goes. So it's worthwhile having a look. And yeah, for external students, sometimes it's that help that you get when you're remote as well. So yes, that's the desk. Oh, and career counselling as well. We offer a range of career counselling services. On the TAFE website, there's actually a career services link that takes you to a range of quizzes, information about all different websites that can talk to you about careers, where the job growth is in South Australia. You can look quite extensively at the area that you're working in, career development-wise. So we also offer a face-to-face service, or we can do that over the phone as well. So it's just a range of information, university pathways, if you're considering other areas or, you know, in different directions for your career or whatever, we can certainly assist you on that journey as well. So thank you.
Scholarship. Yes, there are a few, and I emphasise few, scholarships that might be available for students doing the courses that you're doing. The Wyndham Richardson one that's listed there is already closed, so apologies for that information. On the TAFE website, there is a section on scholarships, and it will tell you whether there are any that you may be eligible for. Some of them now depend on which particular suburb you live in. Some city councils have particular scholarships to assist students in particular areas. There's scholarships for people who are undertaking work, health and safety sorts of classes. There's scholarships based on your particular situation. So just have a look on the website, in the, you know, before you enrol sort of section of the TAFE website, just to see whether there is any access to money that could assist you while you're studying.
And they often have Commonwealth ones that are advertised as well at the beginning of the year, Peter. And sometimes they're worth $18,000 to $20,000, so it's certainly worth looking into scholarships if you think you're eligible for any of those. TAFE has a number of Aboriginal access centres and Aboriginal training support offices throughout the state. On this campus, we are attached to the Noarlunga Aboriginal Access Centre, and the training support officer there is a woman called Lisa Helps. If you are an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander student, there are a number of services that you can access via Lisa. There can sometimes be tutorial assistance available, and you can check with Lisa in relation to any fee assistance that there may be for eligible students. So if you do identify as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander, Lisa Helps is the person to see, and you can contact her via the information counter, and they'll put you. The next thing. Did any of you see this in your email? I know emails are, you get provided heaps of information, but the Student e-Zine is a new program of student services collecting information that might be useful to students about student life, or a different way of connecting us all, given that so much of it's all via the web and all that stuff now. So we have an e-zine rather than a magazine. If you've got some fabulous stories that you would like included in the next one, by all means get in touch and we'll make sure that you can get included. Many of you external students, yeah. So if you are studying externally, then it can be extremely valuable to know of all the various avenues you can get study support. Librarians in TAFE have put together some quite fabulous study guides, so that when you're doing research, you don't necessarily have to fly blind into the world of the internet. You can use the study guides that librarians have put together in your particular area, so that you don't, because when you're doing research and you can just get off onto tangents, etc., really quite easily. Study guides can help you sort of stay on with sites that are actually reputable and useful to the topics that you're undertaking, and you can find those on the library link of the internet site, the TAFE internet site. There is, yes. That's what the page looks like. So yes,
some of them are quite fabulous. There are some general ones in relation to general study skills, note-taking, essay writing, etc. But there are also collections put together around subject areas, which can be very, very valuable, so that you don't wander about aimlessly too much when you're doing research. As nice as that can be some of the time.
And they do have online tutorials as well, like as Lynch just mentioned, with research skills. So you can actually go on and do self-paced tutorials to help you, like with report writing, you know, referencing, anything like that. So it's a range of references there for you also.
Have you noticed this colour on the right-hand side of the, when you open up Learn? Those of you who maybe should go to the next. Oh, well, I'll talk about it. There it is. So, see this thing that looks like an ad when you open up Learn? It's actually the link to a site called Studiosity. Studiosity is a support service that TAFE pays for, so that students can access online tutorial-based sort of support during the hours of 3 p.m. to 12 a.m. Sunday to Friday. So when you're not at TAFE, basically, most of the time. And there's two different sorts of support that you can get through that service. One is you can use a sort of an internet whiteboard to write a question to somebody. So say you've been given a topic to research, or you've been given a question to answer, and you're not certain what's being asked of you. And it's 9, 10 o'clock at night when lots of us do study. What you can do is log in and ask your question, and the service will find a tutor who has expertise in your area, and you can have an online chat to discuss the question and work out, so it's like another set of ears and eyes to look at what it is that you're being asked to do. Students who do use it, and particularly students from Certificate 4 and Diploma on, say it can be extremely valuable service, so that instead of, shutting up the books for the night and thinking, oh, I'll think about it later, you actually continue to work on the stuff. Don't let a question bother you enough to stop you continuing. So that's one service that they do. And then the other thing that they do is, if you provide a draft of a research assignment or an essay or a report that you've written, then they will, within 24 hours, give you feedback on your draft. So they won't answer the question for you, but give you some feedback in relation to things like formatting, grammar, have you answered the question, those sorts of things. And again, the feedback that we get from students is that when people use the service, they found it very, very helpful. So it's worth experimenting with, so that you don't, let something stop you continuing. You've actually got some service that you can use when the tape isn't. Oh, that's no, that's okay. So we're talking, all the things we're talking about are all the different ways that you can get help. There isn't a physical library on this site. You're at liberty to access any of the libraries across the TAFE system. As a TAFE student, it doesn't matter which one you access. You've got access all over the place. Lecturers are obviously the main source of information in relation to the academic parts of your course, and they're always the best go-to person to start with. We have also lecturers in what's called foundation skills on this site and every other TAFE site. So if literacy and numeracy are not your strong points and you're concerned that might hold you back, then there are bridging units that you can undertake, and you can talk to the lecturers that you do have if you feel that you might need some support in that area. Information services, you would have all been to iCentral, where you get your student cards, etc. They can be a font of information as to where to go to get the answer to something. They know the system very, very well. And then I guess finally, for us to get better and better and better, we need to get feedback from people about what we do well and what we don't do so well. So please do provide feedback. There is opportunities to do that again on the website, but also you can do so through the iCentral counter as well. And yeah, basically, we're all grown-ups, but sometimes it is important to sort of emphasise that. Don't be afraid to ask a question. If you've thought of a question, there'll be other people in the room who will also want to know the answer to that question. And if it's on to Leanne and myself, if we don't know the answer, we're only too happy to find out who can answer a particular question.
So thank you. Do we have any questions at all about our services? No. We've left some brochures up the front there as well, just on student services and what we do in a list of the campuses. And there's also a brochure with the desk and Studiosity if you want to take one of those with you on the way out. But on the TAFE SA website, you can gain access to all of what we've just spoken about under student services, career services, and all the campuses are listed there where you can contact us. You can make an appointment by phone or at the information services desk that Linda just spoke of. So, yeah, if you need any help at any time, please let us know. We're more than happy to help anyone with any questions. So, thank you and good luck with your studies. Thanks.
Good afternoon. Okay, my name's Neil Jackson. I'm in between jobs. I was the president of the Building Designers Association. Oh, no. You're right there, or you just. Oh, that's all right, as long as you can see. That's all right, you don't need to see me, that's fine. You're probably better off for it. I was the president of the Building Designers Association of South Australia. At the moment, we're merging with the Building Designers Association of Australia. The aim of that is to give our members a higher rating as far as their ability to receive information, get information, the services are better. The documentation is much more polished than what we were producing here in South Australia, and it'll give everybody quite a good long-term benefit. So that's the reason we're doing it. I have over here, this is my right, Bill Adams from the Building Designers Association. Bill's been a long-standing member of the association for longer than he can probably choose to remember. And we have in the blue shirt Frank Renfrey from a company called HVG. Frank will be giving a presentation in between all of these other presentations. So what we're trying to do is briefly review non-conforming building products and then go to the example of the lacrosse buildings in Docklands in Victoria. And then we'll break for Frank. He can wake you up and excite you about his products, and then I can talk to you about the issues that I've found in a particular project in regards to approvals and formal documentation. So it's the things that you need to be aware of and look for. A lot of this information you can get from the ABCB website. So all I'm doing is just trying to condense it a little bit to make it not as boring as the website, and then that gives you the opportunity to investigate a little bit further with where you want to look for and find out what products you want to to review. So non-conforming products are basically products that claim that they're something that they're not, even though on the face value they look wonderful. When you start looking into them, then they're not giving you the answers you need as far as performance in regards to the building code. So this is different to materials which have been used that do not comply with the NCC. So you have materials which are specifically designed but don't necessarily comply to the National Construction Code, and you've got products which say they comply with the National Construction Code so that you can use them in particular situations, but they don't actually do the job. So there's two different areas that you need to be aware of. The non-complying building products, they're the ones that are labelled being non-combustible or whatever you're looking for, and then they actually don't live up to that. So you've got building products that are labelled or being described as non-combustible, but actually are combustible under certain circumstances. And we have products on the market which are claimed as they're not fire rated, but they are combustible, and various levels on the flammability requirements. The National Construction Code has all the buildings and materials to be fit for purpose. So if you're designing a building and it needs to have an external cladding or some sort of cladding that perhaps needs to be a fire rated one or needs to have a particular performance requirement, then you as the designer need to investigate that particular product to make sure that it achieves what it needs to in regards to the National Construction Code. So that also includes the state and territory building and planning laws that you're dealing with. So if you want to investigate this further, we'll get to that, but there's a lot of state requirements and variations to this particular document as well. So in addition to looking for that information, you've got planning and building. Some products are even regulated as specialist regulatory regimes, so you need to investigate that further in respect to whether they comply with the electrical requirements or the gas requirements or anything else. So it's not only just the building code, it's the other codes that the building or National Construction Code references. So your responsibility is to basically look at that particular product and then work through that product to make sure that the information that you're researching matches what's required in the National Construction Code. And if you don't feel that it does, you can make an assessment and review that to another product, or take your query further, and there are mechanisms that you can actually put in a request for a determination on a particular product, whether it has a compliance level. So you can do that level of research yourself. So for manufacturers, that they need to ensure that the requirements and compliance and conformance of products and provide the evidence that they meet those particular requirements. Importers, wholesalers, distributors, retailers, they've all got to do the same level of due diligence and level of information to make sure that you as the consumer are fully aware and versed of the information that they provide. And you need, if you're going to use something that's coming from perhaps overseas, well then you need to review their approvals to make sure that those particular approvals do line up with the product that you want to use, and that those approvals are current and are for that particular product that you you want to use. As architects, designers, engineers and other specialists, we have the due diligence to make sure that that information that we're using is correct and accurate, because it's the best thing you can do to cover what you're sitting on. Because if there's an issue or a failure, then it won't be the nice people that come, the lawyers will come for everybody and anybody who's been involved in the process. The approval authorities have the issue of looking at that particular product that you have put on your documentation and say, okay, well then they're indicating on their drawing they're using this particular insulation or this particular product. What is the currency? Then they can ask you a question as the designer, provide supporting documentation that that particular product is fit for purpose. Then you've got to go back to the manufacturer, find whatever information that you can from them that that product satisfies the National Construction Code and submit that back to the private certifier or the approving authority, more to the point. Then you go down to the developers and the builders and specialist tradesmen. It's another point of reference that they need to make sure that the products that they're using for their buildings have the appropriate approvals and conformities to the National Construction Code. And then you as a homeowner, well, you may not care. That's really up to you. But you might think it's not your issue. You go and do some modifications to your home and use a particular product to form a function as a repair or replacement of something to do with your building. You sell the house and someone else buys the house and this particular product becomes faulty. Then there is a potential for you as the modifier of that building to be caught in any action of replacement of that unsuitable product. So you've got to be careful yourself, and the consumers should be ensured that they engage a qualified and experienced person to do that particular work. And so that gets down to full circling back to you as the designer, having the knowledge and the skill and to be able to research that information of what they're looking for. How do I ensure that the product I'm using conforms? Well, you can't really ensure it because you can only specify it to your best detail, you can document it to your best ability, but as soon as the documentation leaves your hand and goes to somewhere else, they can choose not to follow your recommendations and then take it away and change it to something which is different. So that's the potential problem we have in the market at the moment, is that no matter what effort you go through to specify a particular product, and all the effort to document that product can leave your hands, go to the approving authority, they can approve it, and then it'll get changed on site for some means or some other cheaper option. So that's something that you need to be aware of as well. So means of ensuring that if you find a certificate of conformity, you use the code mark product or watermark for the plumbing side of things, use those particular products that have been approved for their use in the National Construction Code. Certificate of accreditation of a state or territory body, that can be SAI Global, who do approval of products. There's several other different groups that approve products and services. You need to get a current certificate from them. Certificates from an appropriate qualified person as an engineer. So if you're dealing with a structure, well then the engineer will design that particular structure and those fixtures and fittings to suit that structure. Certificate of a product from a certification body. You've got the likes of the Australian and also the New Zealand approving authorities. You've got a report generated by a registered testing authority. That can be your supporting document or some other service that provides a form of certificate say that that particular product is fit for that particular purpose and is part of the National Construction Code. So as far as code mark goes, that's the symbol you need to look for. If you get a certificate with that symbol on it, that gives you the support that that particular product has gone through that testing process as outlined by code mark. Code mark's been around for quite a long time, and they produce or certify the products for the particular manufacturers and so forth of the products, and then they do that to make sure that their product is compliant with Volumes 1 and Volume 2 of the National Construction Code. Code mark provides confidence and certainly regulatory authorities to market through the issue of those particular certificates. Press harder. So the certification bodies are there. So you've got Code Mark Australia scheme rules. If you want to investigate what the rules are, you can go to Code Mark, and then they'll tell you what their rules are for reviewing those particular products. And you can also get further information from the JANZ and ANZ as far as their assessment goes. They have a product register. So if you're wanting to use a product, you can go to the code mark and you can type in the type of product you're looking for, and you'll be able to find out when it comes out on their register. And once you've done that, you'll be able to see whether there's certificates of conformity and so forth relating to those products. If you don't want to do that and you're dealing with a product, the manufacturer, give them a ring and see what their code mark approvals are. And get them, if you're concerned about that, get them to provide you with a certificate. So you've got related links as shown through there before. Watermark, very similar, it's been around for a little while. It deals with plumbing. And that's the history. So they were concerned about the National Plumbing Training back in 1988, and they started a voluntary system and then formed Watermark later, and then that's been the assessing or approving group since then. So Watermark is this conference presentation. That outline there, this one here, is about a presentation you can get off their Watermark website, which covers a presentation that's done out of function. So if you'd like to have a look at that particular video, then you can go to that link, and that will give you more of an overview on Watermark. Other places that you can look for product information is the Australasian Procurement and Construction Council. If you go on their website, they've got lists of product services, and you can drill down through those lists and then try and find the product that you're looking for. That procurement and construction products document is being produced by the governments. So all the governments in Australia have put together that particular list of products that they're looking for their supply. The use of non-conforming building products in the housing sector has been a growing problem, and it's been highlighted by those few fires and so forth, and it really started back in England when the Tower caught fire. So one of the recalls came back was when they produced substandard electrical cables that came from overseas. And that was one of the issues. They couldn't take the voltage that they were supposed to, and they were overheating and melting and setting fire to places. So those are the sort of things that they indicate that they conform, but when you actually test them and use them, they don't. So plumbing and sanitary ware, electrical fittings, windows, engineered wood and so forth have all numerous examples of fraudulent certification. So it's a minefield. It's about you doing the research on the best product or the product you want to use, and following that through to make sure that you can use that particular product. You see that the problem is quite widespread and it's getting wider. So there's a bigger emphasis on you, the designer, to protect what you're sitting on, to make sure that you can come up with a great result. So the industry is still concerned about things like that. So you as a designer, you're part of the industry, so we just got to be concerned right throughout the whole lot. There is a national construction product register. You can go on that site and they'll give you a whole pile of product information as well. So there's lots of avenues that you can find to support what you're looking for and get an answer for your product. And in the third presentation, we'll cover some of those places that you can look at and what you can actually extract. So what do you do if you suspect a non-conforming product? You can go to the register and you can submit a report to say that I feel this particular product is non-conforming with the building code, and you submit your inquiry to the NCBP, what you respected NCBP form, and then that's done online, because a lot of the consumer protection agencies are assisting in that. When you go to the SA planning portal, you'll see an image of South Australia and a link, and that takes you to a whole pile of other information based on purely South Australia. When you get that far, you'll have every state on that link, and then you can go to each state that you're in and look at the issues that those states have had on perhaps products in those areas. So you can take it further. The use of the products can affect the entire building and the construction industry. So it's about managing the health, safety, and the cost of remediation and the legal cost if you don't do your research up front. Because the legal costs can be quite severe, even though your component to that, the whole project, may only be 1%, your legal cost could be 30%. I don't know. That depends on the lawyers and your involvement with that project and what agreements you have in place. So there's 5 key steps that you need to look at to be informed about non-conforming and non-compliant building products, to be involved in the building product decision-making process. So if someone says to you, I want to use this product, then you need to be involved and say, okay, well, let me do the research on that product to see whether we can use it. Because your client may not be the person who knows about that product, but you need to be the person that knows about that product. Be aware of the building regulatory systems. Be smart by using schemes that assure products. And get help when you need it. So you've got a lot of tools within the web, Australian Building Codes Board, to find out that information. It could take an hour of your time to do that research, but at the end of the day, if you find a positive answer, you've done your research, you know what's there, so you can use that particular product. Non-conforming building products claims to be something that does not meet required standards and is intended use and marked or supplied with the intent to deceive. So you've got to look past that information. So just be very careful. Work with the National Construction Code. There's legislative measures that are already in place to ensure that the building materials meet the standards, but you've just got to be diligent with respect to the products that you use. Anyone directly involved in the purchasing of the products and materials needs to understand the various requirements that apply to these products and materials and evidence required to demonstrate their compliance. So you've got to prove to your client that that is the case. Use materials and products and systems that are widely recognised in the industry. Go to your supplier and say, I want to use this particular product, and then they may say, okay, well that product performs better with this system. So then you look at the whole system, and if that will suit what you're looking at doing, then you've got an avenue of support from that particular supplier. National Construction Code provides technical provisions in the design, construction, performance of buildings, and is also covered in the Building Code Volumes 1 and 2 and the Plumbing Code of Australia Volume 3. So you need to be aware of those particular codes. The general provision regarding the acceptance of design and construction are found in Part A2 of the Volumes 1 and 3 and Part 1.2 of Volume 2. So you can find that information. You've got the different types of approvals. You've got code mark or watermark certificate of conformity, certificate of accreditation from the state or territory accreditation authority, certificate of appropriately approved person. You've got other certificates there that you can, other avenues that you can get that level of information from. The National Construction Code defines several terms relevant to the building products and their appropriate use. So you've got fire resisting. So when it's applied to a building element means that it has an FRL appropriate for that element. Non-combustible, you've got the requirements and you've got the flammability index which assists you in working out those particular products as well. So the Australian Building Codes Board operates two product certification schemes, watermark for plumbing and code mark for building products. Code mark certificate is accepted, and then you've got a range of methods and schemes that can be used to test those particular products. Procurement, so you've got the Australian procurement in the Construction Council to go back as a resource for their products. Be cautious with the replacement products. As I said, you've got to need to do that level of research. Where there's any doubt on the products, research again, look at the options. If there's a breach in the Development Act of 1993, well then you need to look at the item or the materials that you're going to use and reassess the product you want to use. Compliance check occurs at 2 points during the assessment of the application and during an inspection or undertaking during construction. So, and if the compliance of the product that you've chosen as a designer and it is non-compliant and is missed on those 2 checks, then the only way it'll be found out if there's an issue. So the inspection of building work should ensure that the building is being constructed in accordance with the approval. But substitution and people who look at those products that don't necessarily pick up on the substitution. Any concern with the building product can be raised with the relevant approving authorities so that if you happen to be on site and see a product that was put there that you haven't specified, well then you ask the question or go back to the approving authority saying, can we use this product? The complainant, they need to contact one of the state agencies for further advice. So you've got Consumer and Business Services, you've got the Office of the Technical Regulator, Safe Work SA, Department of Planning, Transport and Infrastructure. So you've got a lot of resources to get further advice. As a national level, you've complained to the Australian Consumer and Competition Commission, and you can follow that advice and retain in regards to certain products. They produce product alerts. You've got the building advisory notices that come out from time to time in South Australia. And then if you want to lodge a query, there's a form you can fill out online. So stay safe. Use products from a known source. Check product validity. Maintain a vigilance on products, and keep in contact with your suppliers. So do your research. Find your products. There's lots of avenues you can get supporting documentation. We can take it there. Do we have any questions?
I just have one.
Yes.
So if you specify a product
Yes.
and then they change on site and something goes wrong, it can't come back to you because you specified something different?
It can come back to you. It depends on the lawyer, how good they are, and whether you've left yourself open for involvement. If you specify your product succinctly and it's been approved and someone changes it on site, you're still involved because you specify the product, but your level of involvement may be diminished depending on what the lawyer wants to do, because you may be the only one with PI insurance in the whole process, so they'll go after you.
So if you don't specify anything, then you're not in trouble?
Exactly. So stay at home, twiddle your thumbs, and you'll be good.
Good to know.
Other than the fact that you'll probably have heart disease and liver failure and inactivity and sagging muscles and all that sort of stuff, you'll be good. No, you need to just protect yourself as best you can. Provide that information. If you happen to be on site and you find a substitution, report it to the people who were the approving authority, saying that I've been on site, this is the product I specified, this is what's being used, and let them follow it up. Then they may say, okay, well, we need to vary the application to approve that particular product.
So is that council?
Sorry?
The approving body? Is that
The
council?
approving authority can be council, or can be a private certifier, or if that particular product is being used somewhere else, it may be the supplier of that product needs to provide their code mark certificate for that. So there's other avenues other than those two to answer your problem or your question. But certainly, if you know that, cover your butt and pass it on to someone else to sort it out. Any other questions? Well, I don't know how exit works on this one, but anyway. Oh, no, something else. Has he got? There it is up there. Go to that one. And now where's the mouse gone? Those of you who all right, technology is wonderful. I feel that for myself every day. Okay, for those of you who have been watching the media and so forth, and more in recent times, the results of this particular project, give you a little bit of an understanding. I haven't got into a lot of detail on this because I don't want to put you to sleep, because just like that you go to sleep, because even on the judge's summation of that was 227 pages. So you don't need that level of information. So the lacrosse apartments were built on the docklands in Victoria. That's an image of the apartments that are now repaired. And the owner was awarded $5.7 million as his claim to the project. So that's fine, but he had to pay out of that to all the people that were put out of place and stuff like that, so he probably got not much out of that. So this is in 2014. So the process will drag on. If you have an issue or someone makes a claim against you and lawyers get involved, the clock doesn't have an end date. The lawyers will keep pursuing it and they'll argue between each other backwards and forwards until such time as they can come to common ground, and hopefully it doesn't cost you all that much. So the builder was found liable for $5.7 million in damages over the fire, but the contractors, they were ordered to reimburse the builder 97% of the cost of the repairs. So the builder actually only lost 3% of the cost. The cost of replacing the non-compliant cladding is still being negotiated. So who was caught up in that? The cladding itself was detailed on the building exterior, and there were approximately 400 people evacuated during that complex. The fire brigade found that the building cladding was non-compliant with combustibility requirements outside the building code. So, the major building called the combustibility cladding, you can, on those blue links, you can find out more details about the product, about the problems, but more importantly, this is what we looked at. The decision came down through the courts that the architect was responsible, the fire engineer was responsible, and the building surveyor was responsible. So whatever the cost of that project is, those three entities, you can change the word architect to building designer or whatever you want to put there, but it came down to those three groups of people that were responsible or seen in the judgment as being the responsible parties for that. The builder had some level of responsibility, but not to the extent of those because of the documentation the builder had in place for that particular project. So it's about documentation. Cover your ass. Cover what you're sitting on. Design defect contributed to the damage, and it wasn't also the fact that someone was smoking against the non-compliant product that set fire to it in the first place. So that was one of the balcony levels that were burnt because the fire just raced up the exterior of the building. It took something like 4 minutes to go from level 4 up through level 10. So it didn't waste its time, and it doesn't. That's some of the damage that was caused as the fire raced up, because it just went straight up. It didn't go horizontal, didn't go sideways through the building or anything like that. And so use the products from a known source, as we've been talking about. Check the product validity and make sure you keep up with PI insurance, because that's important. Any questions? You're all racing out to get insurance, I can see. No, that's all right. So that's it from me right at this point in time, but I will start up this one here for. Where is yours, mate?
On the
On the desktop.
on the desk.
Oh,
you can close yours.
No, I'll never find it again.
Okay.
So it's this one here.
Yeah.
So I'll leave mine right here, and we'll come back to that because that's an actual project that I've gone through and had to assess it for its conformity of the National Construction Code. So, and then we've got full screen down. Oh, look, I'll go back. Sorry, Frank.
Yeah. Right. Frank,
Ladies and gentlemen.
Okay. Thanks for letting me present today. On quite short notice, I found out on Friday, but we'll have a go. HVG is the company I represent, and I look after the facade division. We have several divisions in our company, mostly to do with the construction industry, but also the graphics industry and some packaging and a product called Smartstone, which is an engineered stone product as well. But my particular area that I look after is the facade division. Now, we have been the distributor of the Alucobond product, which is an ACM, so very topical and front and centre with what's been happening recently. So we've been distributing that for about 30 odd years in Australia and still do. It's probably our major selling product still. And I'm happy to field any questions or answer any details that you've got in regard to ACM and our, in particular our product, the Alucobond Plus. But maybe that's for another time. I'll leave my details with whoever needs to follow that up if you like. Today I want to focus on the non-combustible facade solutions or some of the other products in our product portfolio that would be considered conforming because they are non-combustible. To the Australian standard, I think it was mentioned in one of the slides, the AS 1530 Part 1. So we have, other than Alucobond, we have various products to our product portfolio, and there's two new ones, Mondoclad and Zinful, and there's a couple of ones we've had for a few years now in Swiss Pearl and Turil. Mondoclad is a solid aluminium, so is Zinful. Swiss Pearl is a cement sheet, and Turil is a terracotta tile and sunscreen system. Okay, so Mondoclad. My pen stamp is around. Start here and just pen back there. Because our familiarity with the composite, aluminium composite through Alucobond, we wanted to, when we introduced Mondoclad, we wanted to make the transition for architects and building surveyors, building designers as seamless as possible. Aluminium composite panels are popular because they're lightweight and easy to assemble, and they look great and they're low maintenance. And so we want to introduce a product that has all those characteristics. So, but met also the non-combustible. So it's a solid aluminium panel with a PVDF or FEVE, which is the paint system, the stove like a paint system that is on the surface of the material. It's non-combustible to C1. These codes will change actually in the next version of the NCC, which is due around a couple of months. But it's moved around a bit. It's essentially the same thing. It's non-combustible to C19.9 EV, which means it's past AS 1530 Part 1. It's 3mm thick. It's pre-finished. It's a marine grade alloy, and it's an exceptionally high quality product that will stay looking good for many years. Okay. The benefits of the product are that it's non-combustible, that it's got a superior long-lasting PVDF paint system. There's a wide range of colours and finishes. I'll leave some brochures up and shows all those. So I think there's 30 odd solid colours and metallics. There will be a 15-year warranty. I'll explain this fabrication process. It's easy to fabricate. We are, as a stocking warehouse, or as a stocking distributor, we have 5 stocking warehouses around Australia, including South Australia. So we stocked in Australia, and we feel it's competitively priced as well. I'll quickly show that there's a cassette on a folded sort of like box lid shaped product that I'm handing around. So that's essentially this. The product is sold as a watertight system. So the fabricator will fold and create that box lid and then attach an angle to the all 4 sides of the product. And that usually a Z angle, but it can be, there's different systems, but it's usually a Z angle. And there's a high and low, and that overlapping Z angle gets screwed into the subframe. So the subframe is normally a 1.15 millimetre galvanised steel top hat, and that can run vertically or horizontally on the building surface, on the building structure, and it just depends on how many fixed points you need as to how many top hats and centres you need to place the top hats. And that creates your panel system. So that from the inside out, that's the internal wall. And it's usually, there can be, if required, a stacking behind the top hat. But once the subframe is set up, it's reasonably easy to install. When I say easy to fabricate, a lot of the major contractors that we work with have CNC, flatbed routers. That product can be folded and routed, pretty much the same as ACMs have been done over the years. While it's a solid aluminium, a lot of work went into what alloy and what temper the product it was supplied in, and it's a 5052 marine grade alloy with a H32 temper, and that means it can be it's pliable enough to fold without hairline cracking the paint. Whereas if you go for a different alloy, for example, if you go for a 5000 500 series alloy, you couldn't be able to fold that without hairline cracking the joint. So there's a lot of thought into that. If you went to a different product, you might have to brake press it and then powder coat it or paint it afterwards. So that's a relatively new product of ours, and we've started that basically up from scratch in about 15 to 18 months. So that's available now. It's being specified on buildings. It's being used to reclad buildings, so retrofit or replacement of non-compliant products, and that's it's been well received by the market. The other product that was introduced, so the 2 new products were Zintal and Mondo, which we're saying. The Zintal is again a solid aluminium product. It's an interlocking panel system, and the standard offer for this will be a powder coated offer. Again, it's certified non-combustible because it's solid aluminium and it's passed the AS1530 Part 1. It's BDAA rated, so in fire, it depends on the fire risk of the area it's going into, but oftentimes in a high bushfire area, you have to have a non-combustible product to a certain level off the ground. This will pass that BDAA rating. You can use it right to the ground because it passes AS1530 Part 1. Again, a marine grade alloy, so you can use it in coastal environments. It's easy to install because it's an interlocking system. So again, the subframe is pretty similar to a Mondoclad. We have a vertical batten, and then this is like a clip and rail system, which will go in a little bit more detail. But it's an interlocking system. So they're 2 different profiles, but that's how it sort of interlocks. And there's a clip that holds it against the vertical top hat. And it comes with a full range of accessories too, so window surrounds, door jambs, and all that sort of stuff. non-combustible, unlimited powder coated option. Our default offer is either Interpon or Dulux. So they have different ranges, but the default offer is what they call their 25-25. I'm not sure what that means. It's 25-year warranty. They do others with coastal mines where they got a 30-year warranty, so it's project specific. But to keep it fairly simple, we've gone with a reputable brand powder coat as well as Dulux as well. So there's, the options are almost limitless, really. We bring it in as a raw product, and once someone selects what finish they want from the Interpon range or Dulux range, we'll then supply with a finished product. There's, I'm not sure what customizable means, because we have 6 different profiles, which I'll show you. 10 to 30 year warranty, fair rated, stocked in Australian competitive price. So this is not strictly a watertight system. We are having, as we speak, full-scale weather testing. So we'll have that data. And that's basically, we've built a rig, and I think they probably pump a fire hose onto it, and then they measure its ability to resist weather. But again, the full wall makeup is a top hat, some darking if you need that behind it, the top hat, and then the board gets screwed into the top hat and held in place with a clip and overlap. So it's a concealed fixing system. That's the 6 different profiles. They're mostly used horizontally, but some, you can use all of them vertically. But mostly they just lend themselves to using horizontally, except this one, which is I think they call that like a standing seam sort of option. You wouldn't use that horizontally because water would just sit in the flat. So that's the 6 different profiles, just slight variations in shape. Okay, so that's briefly diesel. The first part I'll talk about is Swiss Pearl. Now, Swiss Pearl is a high density cement panel. I'll show you this. This is Swiss Pearl is a colour through cement sheet. So it's not like your traditional cement sheets you would screw into a subframe, you would bog over the screw or rivet, but then you paint it with a heavy textured paint system, and hopefully it's put up properly and it wouldn't crack and it wouldn't become unsightly over the years, but traditionally that's what the cheaper cement sheets look like eventually. Whereas Swiss Pearl, because of its density and because it's colour through and it's got a very high cement content as opposed to fillers, so it's very strong. It'll hold it. It won't crack where the screws are, provided you keep away from the edge a little bit. But it's also pre-finished, so you don't have to paint it. And it's very, very low maintenance, and it's also highly impact resistant. So, for example, we're at ground level where there's a high traffic area. Its impact resistance is excellent, and it's also got a fair amount of natural graffiti resistance as well. So, because of the high quality surface finish. So if the product was tagged, it could be cleaned quickly. It would probably clean out with just organic solvents. Or if there was some ghosting, it would probably weather out eventually. So again, because it's a cement sheet, it's certified non-combustible. You can either rivet or a rivet face fix, which is shown in that rivet or screw face fix, which is shown in that little prototype there. Or you can use that if you want a concealed fix. There's a Sikatac. Sika is a brand of chemicals and adhesives. They have engineered a fixing system called Sikatac Panel 10, I think. And that's basically a 4-part gluing system. So it has double-sided tape and a construction adhesive, a primer and an activator, and that can be used at low level. I think up to 2 floors, 10 metres wide, so maybe 2 or 3 floors. So that's a concealed fixing system if you're not happy with the rivets or screws. Just to colour through, there's about 6 different product ranges. So there's some that are just look like a paint finish, and there's some that look like a where you can see the cement fibre through the surface. Yeah, there's many different choices to choose from. Again, we have up to a 20-year warranty with that. The benefits of combustibility, it is a rear ventilated facade system, so there needs to be airflow top and bottom. But your wall in behind it should perform as a wall should, so waterproof, and all that sort of stuff. The sticker tagging we went into, the maintenance free, so the sticker needs to be resurfaced or recoated, and it's highly durable. The last product is Terreal. Terreal is a terracotta tile system. So there's lots of different styles of tile, but I'll just show a profile of one. That's again, goes on a vertical rail with a horizontal rail that goes across, and the tiles are held into place that way. So there's a lot of different tiles, and plus there's a sunscreen system. It's just a simple square style, but there are different options in that. So again, it's non-combustible because it's natural terracotta. We don't sell a lot of this because it's a very distinct European design style, but it's certainly available to us, and we've got some fairly high profile jobs in Australia. So, this is a new product that we're about to launch into, Sidewise, which is a cavity barrier or fire stop. We spoke about code mark previously. The Elucabon product has a code mark certificate with conditions and limitations. So the code mark certificate is an engineered document that draws on all sorts of data, one of which is the full-scale facade test, which is called BSA 414. But one of the requirements of that is vertical separation between the floors. A classic example is that lacrosse building. If they had vertical separation via this sort of product, once that's the only on the market, but via this sort of product, the risk of that fire spreading vertically would have been greatly reduced, and maybe even not occurred at all, or certainly held up the fire enough for all the systems to come into place. This is sort of a great enough. It's basically the product we're going to sell is it's an intermittent cavity barrier. So it can get attached to the slab end or horizontally across the building between floors or at the floor level, and between the top hats, for example. So if you've got a 35 on the top hat, the product would, when it gets to a certain temperature, expand and create a physical barrier so the flames can't continue off the building. So that's a product we're going to be selling in conjunction with all our systems, but particularly for the Elucabon Plus product. So I think that's it. So as I said, I'll leave some brochures and I'll have to leave some business cards, and if there's any questions related to those products or Elucabon Plus, I'm happy to deal with it. All right, that's it.
Thank you, Frank. I wasn't aware that there was another class coming in here at 1:30, so we'll just go very quickly through the other thing I wanted to just show you. asked to review a toilet building a client wanted to use on his building sites. And that was the toilet building he wanted to use. And I said, where are you getting it from? He said, China. So as you can see by some of the markings on there. So the toilet building was essentially a very small container, and he was bringing it here into Australia. So he wanted me to make sure that everything was above board, and they provided all of these particular certificates saying it's in accordance with all of these particular approvals. But the research that I've had is that particular energy safe certificate of approval says it is a certificate of approval, but it doesn't identify who the approval was to, what it was for, or how long the approval will last. So that's what they were saying. The same with that certificate. When I communicated with Energy Safe, they said that it's a non-compliant certificate. You've got other certificates that have been issued from approving authorities, but there's no name from who the approval was to, what the product was for, and then but there's other parts of it that says the product is this. All of this has been approved, but it doesn't relate to the actual approval. And so what was happening is someone was getting a product approved once, and then someone else was copying that approval and using that for their products, but the approval was not actually relating to the product that they were approving or saying that they had the approval for. So, and I communicated with them in regards to their approval and got from their website that saying that this product or this approval doesn't exist for that particular company. The same with the certificate of certification from that approver, from certifier. And then we looked at the wet area details, and that's what we need the wet area details to look like, and that wasn't the case in that wet area. There was no floor drainage, so we needed to have a hand basin that had a hole in it. Didn't have that. Toilet can't be in that position because it needs to be 460 mil off the wall, and if you look at refer back to the building, it's only 1100 wide. You take out 100 mil for the external cladding, it's only a metre wide, and then you've got to fit the toilet and a hand basin in accordance with their plans. There was no disabled access, no braille, and that was the plan, and there were the notes that I made that there was no facility for someone to fall over and be taken out of that particular toilet for their safety, and then it's just a really, really cramped condition. The question I asked them were the materials comply with the fire hazard indices, and looking at the Australian standard didn't meet some of those, so you've got all those bold items. The ones that are marked in bold are all the ones referenced by the National Construction Code. So in summary, it didn't comply in lots of areas. So if you're doing an assessment on a building, go through and look at that stuff, because it'll only benefit you, you'll understand the product better, and you'll make the right decisions for your client. So check. Keep the eye up. That's all I can say. So thank you very much for coming. I know there's someone else that's coming in, so thank you very much for your time. We do appreciate it. We're back on the 20th of March. We're having a 2 presentation session on energy efficiency, dealing with some products, processes.
April. 20th of April.
No, May.
Oh, sorry, you said March.
See? You've got to go to someone who knows what's going on. No, 20th of May is the next time. 2-part presentation in May and August, I think it is. So there'll be energy efficiency, designs and windows and so forth, and then an energy assessor And then in August, there'll be a deem to satisfy and also a Section J presentation. So thank you very much for coming. Sorry we've gone over time, and we appreciate the effort you're making to come.
Now, obviously, as lecturers, we'll try and share these links with you through the forums and stuff, but join the BDA and sign up for your membership and get all the links directly from them as well.
Go to bdaa.com.au, membership down to student, you'll find it's free, and then you just got to fill it out and put your student ID information in there as well. Then your email comes to me and I'll follow it. Thank you.
Now, people that are here for Michael Jensen's building approval class can stay in this room, and also the building design project, normally in Mary's class, but with me, we're just staying in this room for now. Yeah, have a quick break, have a quick stretch your legs, toilet if you need to. If you need to be in commercial compliance, they're waiting, or residential compliance, they're waiting for you guys next door.
I haven't got it finalised yet, but what I'll do is I'll send through, or send all the lecturers the PDF of the booklet.
Yeah, you have
You can print that off, write it down if you've been here, and then I'll finalise the details with getting access to the BDAA app.
Yep.
And then,
I've got the app installed.
oh, okay, well then we'll get that sorted.
No problem. Yeah, some other steps.
The material as they're in that file there on the desktop, so hopefully someone can take somewhere on the system where you can access. Hopefully.
Good, thank you.
So is this?
So we are actually going to jump around Okay.
Give me a ring.
All excited? Riveting. So we've got the building design project students from Mary's class. Yes. So the idea, everything was put online. We're sort of going to get a bit of a feel, and then you guys have to ask questions. So as much as you uploaded all your questions online, it's important that you're still asking these questions now. Thank you guys.
I do have a challenge.
Thank you. Okay, sorry. So yes, asking those questions as well. So everyone needs to interact several times. I've got a little box that I'm ticking to make sure. So between the three people that we're going to see, so ideally at least one question each. It's going to be hard if you've got the exact same question as someone else, which some of you do, but throw a comment in there, somehow interact, somehow ask a different question. If there's something that, triggers a question for something else, throw it in there. I'm not ticking to ask to see if you've asked that exact question that you submitted. I'm just ticking to see that you're involved. Okay? As for Michael's class, I think it's very similar requirements there as well, just that you're interacting. So you've probably got some boxes to tick here too. And then my tricky part is remembering exactly who's who, because some of you external guys I don't get to see all the time. So we'll get there. Maybe I should start with a quick roll check then, just to see who I have got. Jamie? No, Jamie Koo? No? Good start. Jacob? Thanks. Carolyn? Nathaniel? Ebony? Yep. Hey, Ebony, how you doing? Good, thanks. How are you? Jonathan? Isaac? Isaac? Yes. Nearly missed. Just here. Daniel?
Yep.
Saeed, I have seen. Stephen, I have not seen today. Caleb is here. Jason is here. Joseph. Chris. Pauline, I've seen. Ina. Carly, I've seen. What's going on? Alright, I'm actually just going to check next door if these other guys are there before we get started. Do you need to address your guys for anything, Michael?
No, so we've all had that discussion about what we're going to talk about who's in, so that's fine. I'll just make note of who's asking questions.